The conflict between Israel and Palestine is a deeply complex and long-standing issue with roots stretching back over a century. It involves a clash of nationalistic and religious ideologies, territorial disputes, and a legacy of historical events. Here is an overview of how the conflict began and the challenges to resolving it. The conflict between Israel and Palestine is deeply rooted in a mix of historical, political, and cultural factors. Its origins date back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, marked by the emergence of two nationalistic movements: Jewish Zionism and Arab nationalism. Jewish Zionism arose in response to widespread anti-Semitism in Europe, advocating for the creation of a Jewish homeland in what was then Ottoman-ruled Palestine. This movement gained momentum, particularly following the horrors of the Holocaust, as a refuge for Jewish people. Concurrently, Arab nationalism was growing among the Arab inhabitants of the region, spurred by the declining Ottoman Empire and opposition to foreign rule and settlement. This period also saw increasing Jewish immigration to Palestine, particularly as European Jews faced persecution and sought a safe haven. The Balfour Declaration of 1917, issued by the British government, further complicated matters. It expressed support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, but also stipulated that this should not undermine the rights of existing non-Jewish communities. This declaration was seen as a betrayal by the Palestinian Arabs and a significant step towards the establishment of Israel. The situation escalated following World War I, when the League of Nations granted Britain the mandate to govern Palestine. During this time, the tensions between the Jewish and Arab communities intensified, often leading to violent confrontations. The British struggled to maintain peace and order and to reconcile the conflicting aspirations of the Jewish and Arab populations. By the end of World War II and the Holocaust, global sympathy for the Jewish cause had grown significantly. The atrocities faced by Jews in Europe had increased international support for a Jewish state. In 1947, the United Nations proposed the partition of Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. This plan was accepted by the Jewish leadership but was vehemently rejected by the Arab side, leading to the outbreak of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, following the declaration of the State of Israel. The war resulted in a significant reshaping of the region, with Israel establishing itself as a state and causing the displacement of a large number of Palestinian Arabs, leading to a long-standing refugee crisis and further solidifying the division and animosity between the two groups. The foundation of the conflict was thus laid, based on deep-seated nationalistic claims to the land, historical grievances, and profound cultural and religious differences, setting the stage for decades of conflict that continue to this day. The period following World War II was crucial in the establishment of Israel and further intensifying the conflict between Jews and Arabs in Palestine. The horrors of the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were systematically murdered, significantly shifted international sentiment, increasing support for the Jewish nationalist movement, Zionism, and the call for a Jewish homeland. This period saw a dramatic increase in Jewish immigration to Palestine as survivors of the Holocaust and Jews from around the world sought refuge and a new beginning in what they viewed as their ancestral homeland. This influx intensified tensions with the Arab population, who opposed the increasing Jewish presence and the prospect of a Jewish state in a region they had inhabited for centuries. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a solution to this growing conflict: the partition of Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab. This UN partition plan, outlined in Resolution 181, was accepted by Jewish leaders but rejected by the Arab side, who saw it as a dissection of their land and a violation of their right to self-determination. The rejection of the partition plan led to escalating violence between Jewish and Arab communities. In May 1948, David Ben-Gurion, the head of the Jewish Agency, proclaimed the establishment of the State of Israel. This declaration was immediately followed by the invasion of the newly formed state by neighboring Arab countries, marking the beginning of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, also known as the War of Independence in Israeli narratives. The war resulted in a decisive Israeli victory and the expansion of Israeli territory beyond the boundaries set by the UN partition plan. For the Palestinian Arabs, the war was a catastrophe, Nakba, leading to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who either fled or were expelled from their homes in the territory that became Israel. The 1948 war and the establishment of Israel fundamentally transformed the region. It created a substantial refugee crisis, with Palestinians fleeing to neighboring Arab countries, where many and their descendants remain as refugees. The conflict between Israel and the Palestinians became a central issue in the Middle East, involving neighboring Arab states and drawing international attention. In the aftermath of the war, no peace agreement was reached, and the status of Jerusalem, along with the borders of Israel and the rights of Palestinian refugees, remained unresolved. These issues, along with the continued conflict between Israeli and Palestinian nationalist aspirations, have been at the heart of the ongoing struggle in the region. The establishment of Israel thus marked the beginning of a new and turbulent chapter in the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The continued conflict between Israel and Palestine and the challenges to achieving peace are deeply rooted in historical, political, and social complexities. Since the establishment of Israel in 1948 and the subsequent wars, including the 1967 Six-Day War in which Israel captured the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, the region has seen unceasing tensions and periodic outbreaks of violence. One major obstacle to peace is the issue of land and borders. The 1967 war and Israel's occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem created new realities on the ground. Israeli settlements in these territories, considered illegal under international law but disputed by Israel, have been a major point of contention. The settlements are seen as an obstacle to peace by Palestinians and much of the international community because they involve the appropriation of land and resources and impact the viability of a contiguous Palestinian state. Another significant challenge is the political division between the Palestinian territories, with the Fatah-dominated Palestinian Authority governing the West Bank and the Islamist group Hamas controlling the Gaza Strip. This division complicates the peace process, as both groups have different approaches and policies towards Israel in negotiations. Security concerns are paramount for both sides. For Israel, the primary concern is protecting its citizens from terrorist attacks, which it uses to justify its military actions and security measures in the occupied territories. For Palestinians, the daily realities of occupation, including checkpoints, restrictions on movement, and military incursions, continue to fuel resentment and despair. The status of Jerusalem remains one of the most sensitive and complex issues. Both Israel and Palestine claim Jerusalem as their capital. The city holds profound religious and cultural significance for Jews, Muslims, and Christians, making its final status a highly contentious issue in peace negotiations. The right of return for Palestinian refugees who were displaced during the wars of 1948 and 1967 is another major issue. Palestinians insist on the right of refugees to return to their former homes, while Israel fears that this would alter the Jewish demographic majority in Israel. International involvement, while crucial, has often been a double-edged sword. Different countries and international organizations have various interests and perspectives, which sometimes align with one side and sometimes with the other, making the peace process even more complex. In conclusion, the challenges to achieving peace between Israel and Palestine are multifaceted, involving deeply entrenched historical grievances, differing narratives, security concerns, and geopolitical interests. These challenges have hindered the numerous peace initiatives and negotiations over the years, and addressing them requires a nuanced, balanced, and sustained international effort, along with a genuine commitment from both Israeli and Palestinian leaderships to seek a peaceful resolution. Conclusion: the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is deeply rooted in historical, political, and social contexts. Its resolution is complex due to the intertwining of nationalistic aspirations, historical grievances, security concerns, and geopolitical dynamics. Efforts to resolve the conflict have been ongoing, involving numerous negotiations, peace initiatives, and international mediation efforts, but a lasting solution that addresses the core issues and satisfies both parties has yet to be achieved.